Welcome to Read Poetry and Eventually Die, Episode 4. I am your host, Steve Rogenbach. It's A New Hope. Episode 4, The New Hope. And it is a new hope because I haven't recorded an episode of this podcast in many months. It was October when I last recorded one, and a lot of people asked me, Steve, what happened to your podcast? Did you give up on your podcast? Is there ever going to be more episodes of your podcast? You should bring it back. And I always been telling people, I intend to bring it back. I'm just balancing a lot of stuff. Welcome, I'm back. And tonight is the goddamn blood moon. It's April 4th. It's a blood moon. That means it is the total lunar eclipse. That means that the normal light that would shine on the full moon tonight, the Earth is blocking it out. The Earth is in between the sun and moon, blocking that light out, but the only light that gets through is that light that goes around the Earth, and so that light turns red the same way that a sunset turns red when going through the atmosphere that direction, and so the moon will look red like god dang blood. It's gonna be a great moon, and then we're gonna have waning gibbous. So, shouts out to the waning gibbous, underappreciated moon phase, but let's appreciate the full moon while it's here. And today on the show, I'm gonna be talking about Audre Lorde's poetry. Audre Lorde, very legendary black lesbian feminist. I've read some of Audre Lorde's essays. I liked them. I've read various Audre Lorde quotes around the internet. Really liked them. Thought this is a person who I can learn a lot more from. And it's interesting when I identify somebody who seems to be really smart, especially in these topics like politics or philosophy. These topics that really do take a lot of learning and thinking and reading and analyzing to get smart at. Those people, I'm very interested to always hear them talk about other aspects of life then. I was very interested to read Bell Hooks talking about spirituality and relationships. I was very interested to find this Noam Chomsky interview recently where he was talking about love and how life is quite an empty affair without love. Quote Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky is like this deep historical political database of all these U.S. war crimes and like horrible atrocities, but yet he still can churn out these amazing cliches about love that truly warmed my heart. So we're going to look at Audre Lorde's poetry. What does this kind of legendary black feminist leader do when she writes in poetry? That's very interesting to me, And I also want to say I came up with a better structure for this show. I came up with more of a structure because before I would just read a book, take tons of notes on it, and then sort of blab on for about 30 minutes, maybe cut it down a bit in the editing, and then, post whatever is the result. But now I'm thinking, I'm going to do a more simplified version of the show. I'm going to give 3 distinctive aspects of the text that I want to talk about, and then share 3 poems from the text. And the main text that I'm looking at here is Audre Lorde's book, Black Unicorn. I understand she's actually got like 10 books of poetry or something. Maybe that's an outdated number, but that's what it said on the back of the book, I think. So let's dive right into it. First aspect of the poetry that I want to talk about is that it discusses a lot about identity. Audre Lorde is obviously someone who identifies a lot with blackness, a lot with being a woman, a lot with being a black woman, a black lesbian woman. So that comes up a lot in the poems. There's these poems that use these repeating lines. I'm pretty sure there was a repeating line, I come like a woman. I come like a woman throughout this poem. And there's another poem that repeated with my own black song. There's also a lot of African names referenced in the poems, as well as an appendix with explanations of these names. So, the identity of the writer, the identity of the person in the poem is very upfront. It really put things in a different context sometimes. It puts stuff like the second thing I want to talk about in context, which was the great, beautiful, strange, poetic language, which is really cool to find, because sometimes in political poetry, it sacrifices a lot of the artistic language play in order to be more direct political language. And I respect poetry that does that. I appreciate poetry that does that. But it's also really interesting to see political poetry that insists on being beautiful, strange, poetic language. And so this book definitely has a lot of that as well. These lines about night, for example, I really like. Night comes into me like a fever. And this other line about night, the night is a blister of stars. And also, I'm just going to mention this third great line, bring me where my blood moves. It was a good reading experience for those things. And, when a text has that inventive, beautiful, strange language, it's just so fun to read the text and to read it aloud, give voice to these combinations of words that feel a certain way in the mouth. I'm outside right now in Tucson, Arizona. I've been living in Tucson, and I keep seeing lizards. They got lizards here. And I grew up in Michigan, and they didn't have no lizards up there. I mean, they had some. Occasionally, you get a garden snake or frog up there, but we didn't get no geckos up there. Third aspect of the poems I want to discuss is just a note about the form. The form of the poem, it doesn't look too experimental on the page. It's mostly left aligned, normal font size, basically conventional looking stanzas. Some interesting things though, oftentimes the poems don't have punctuation within the stanzas. So you'll get a long stanza with many sentences, that kind of run together and then a period at the end, or a period at the end of a whole poem, but the sentences in the middle can kind of bleed together sometimes. You can read it multiple ways that way. Some other times it's very clear, but I'm gonna read some poems now. This poem is called Coping. It has rained for 5 days running. The world is a round puddle of sunless water, where small islands are only beginning to cope. A young boy in my garden is bailing out water from his flower patch. When I ask him why, he tells me, young seeds that have not seen sun forget and drown easily. Second poem now that I'm going to read. I'm just going to read these right in a row without no explanations, without no analysis, just let you feel the poetry. This one is actually a section in a longer poem. You say I am sound as a drum, but that's very hard to be. As you cover your ears with academic parchment, be careful. You might rip the cover with your sharp nails, and then I will not sound at all. To put us another way, what I come wrapped in should be familiar to you as hate is. What I come wrapped in is close to you as love is, close to death or your lying tongue surveying the countries of our mouths. If I were drum, you would beat me, listening for the echo of your own touch. Not seeking the voice of the spirit inside the drum, only the spreading out shape of your own hand on my skin cover. If I ever really sounded, I would rupture your eardrums or your heart. And the last poem I'm going to read from this book is called Lightly. Don't make waves is good advice from a leaky boat. 1 light year is the distance one ray of light can travel in 1 year, and 30 light years away from Earth in our infinitely offended universe of waiting. An electronic cloud announces our presence, finally, to the unimpressible stars. This is straight from a Scientific American on the planet Earth. Our human signature upon the universe is an electronic cloud of expanding 30-year-old television programs like Howdy Doody, Arthur Godfrey, Uncle Milty, and Hula Hoops, quiz shows and wrestling midgets, baseball, the McCarthy hearings, and Captain Kangaroo. Now, I don't know what a conscious universe might be, but it is interesting to wonder what will wave back to all that. Now, that one I have to comment on. That poem, Audre Lorde truly laying down some truth there, you know. If that is what represents us to the universe, will them aliens even call back? Will they even wave back? Will they even swipe right on our asses? So, what else to say? This Audre Lorde, check it out if you like it. Audre Lorde, a legend. We all probably need to read more Audre Lorde. I know I do. Well, a couple personal updates before I go. I'm now living in Tucson. I've posted about this on various social media, but in case you haven't been following me very closely, I'm in Tucson, Arizona now as my home base. Boost House has moved here. Boost House is still going. We're figuring things out. We're making adjustments as we go. We've got some very exciting book projects in the pipeline. I've also been touring a lot more this year. I've been touring like a week or two each month. Most of it's in the US. Currently, my website for that is livemylife.com/tour, life being spelled L-I-E-F, livemylife.com/tour. You know, check if I'm coming to your area. I'm coming to lots of areas. And 2015, I want to just give another shout out to 2015. Shout out to the people who are, you know, determined to do something cool in 2015. It's April now. You know, we're going into the 4th month of 2015, and I am still jacked off that initial pump of it being a new year. You know, I really milk that. A lot of people milk that for, you know, a week or two at the beginning of January, but for me, you know, it's good 4 or 5 months at the beginning of the year. I'm like, it's a new year. It's 2015. I'm ready for the new thing, you know. What's this year gonna be like? So thank you for listening. Thank you for listening today. And, you know, go and look at the moon if it's nighttime. Go and look at the moon if you have clear skies and it's nighttime. And if it's not, by God, look at whatever else is above. Okay, have a good one. Have a really good one. You know, I have a hard time saying goodbye because sometimes when I am speaking, you know, from my heart, you know, this happens at poetry readings a lot too. I'm speaking and I'm sharing things and I can't bring myself to say goodbye because I know that, you know, I feel a urge in me to share some things with you, and I don't even know what right now. I think I cherish being able to say stuff to you so much that I don't want it to end, even though I don't have anything else to say. What else could I possibly tell you? I already told you to look at the moon. You already know to look at birds. That one's obvious. So,